Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jill, and on behalf of the Tutorial Beta Institute, I would like to welcome you to the third in our workshop series in supporting those entering the job force. We are partnering with the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces on this workshop series, and we are so pleased to be able to have everybody here participating with us. We are focusing on different areas of that job journey. So from resumes to interviews to today's topic on continuing education. And next week, we'll be discussing the power of networking. And so we hope that you'll join us back on that. I will make sure and post a little bit later on in the chat the link to that event, but you can still register for that event as well. And on June 14th, we will be hosting a job fair. We had planned to do it at the end of May, but we were lucky enough to get the Texas Workforce Solutions to partner with us on this virtual job fair. And so our date got moved to the 14th of June, but we will have registration open soon for that. And we are super excited to have them participating with us on that. Our format today is going to be an interactive one. So I do have slides to share, but our most important thing today is our panel of speakers. So they will be here to provide you with their thoughts and experiences in continuing education and to share with you on that. Please feel free to comment in the chat section throughout the event, and we will answer those questions as we go through. And then we will we'll reserve some time at the end of the event to open it up and get y'all off mics and let you interact with our panelists as we go through. Now, I am honored to present our panel. Tim, if you'll start by introducing yourself, we'll go through and do introductions, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jill. My name is Tim Romer. I am the president and general manager of the public sector for Thrive DX. We are a 360-degree training company, everything from awareness to phishing, to your workforce development, reskilling, upskilling, you name it, everything cybersecurity training. And I've been in this job since January. Prior to that, I served 18 years in federal and state government, most recently the director of Homeland Security for the state of Arizona and head of cybersecurity for the state of Arizona. So honored to be here and looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ken.
Oh, hey, everyone. Ken Underhill here, co-founder over at CyberLife, which is a cybersecurity training provider primarily focused on helping executive teams reduce cyber risk across the organization. I've been in IT cyber stuff for 20 plus years. I know I look like a teenager still, but been around the block quite a bit, a number of executive roles in some major tech companies, director level in some of those, and kind of worked the gamut. I mean, I started out at help desk to network engineering, came into analyst, pen tester, you name it, I've probably done it or been involved in it in some capacity. So looking forward to today, and hopefully we can share some wisdom that helps all of you in your cyber careers.
Perfect. And Joshua.
Josh Copeland. I am one of the security directors with AT&T. Essentially, my role is a vCISO for our state government-based customers, SLTT, SLED. Prior to doing that, I led a rather large team with General Dynamics for their cloud platform security teams. And prior to that, I was Air Force for 20 years, doing everything you can possibly imagine, from basic help desk stuff, routing, switching, servers, pen tests, policy, the whole gamut for the United States Air Force. So great to be here, and happy to share some of my experience.
Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and share screen here and add in our slides. So let's start with what is continuing education. When you think about continuing education in the cyber industry, what are y'all thinking about?
Was that
Tim,
directed to? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Tim, you want to start it off?
Happy to. We had a phrase working for Governor Ducey in the state of Arizona that everything we did had to be all about continuous improvement. It was constantly evolving, and you can never be done learning. You're never going to have all of the answers. And that's why one of the most important things you can do is to continue to challenge yourself and to learn new skills. I have truly never thought that I would be around an industry and a leader in an industry like cybersecurity, because it touches all of our lives globally. And the threats of being able to attack anyone from anywhere at any given time really show the threat arena that we operate in. And we need good human beings trained to work in this industry to help us meet this demand. And from a continuing education perspective, what I've seen is I've seen a lot of people who started off in one field and then said, cybersecurity is becoming so important. It's so lucrative. I truly care about this and I'm passionate about it. I want to go back and I want to get the skills I need to be in the cybersecurity workforce. And even those who started in the cybersecurity field, they're constantly having to continue their education to learn about the new tools that they're going to need to operate and manage and how they're going to defend against evolving threats. So to me, it's really that, continuous improvement that you've got to keep raising the bar, because if you don't, your organization will suffer and our own careers will become lackluster. So I've done it as well. I thought I was going to spend my entire career in counterterrorism, and I took a pivot. I took a sidestep, and I recognized that cybersecurity is where I should be spending the rest of my career. But with that said, I don't have all the answers. I'm going to have to evolve and continue my education and get better on the cyber front, just like all of you.
Perfect. Ken, Josh, y'all want to add to that?
Yeah, I guess the thing I'll just add is I look at continuing education as learning how to make a key for a door lock. So if I just stop at one phase, I can make one key for one door, and that's my door of opportunity. But the more keys that you can make by taking courses or watching videos, podcasts, books, whatever, that's more doors that you can open in your career. And so that's really what, to me, continuing education is, whether that's learning a new tool, a new skill, getting some knowledge on something, talking to somebody, getting some advice on your career. That also helps you build that key, so to speak, and open that next door.
Perfect. Excellent.
And
Josh?
he agrees with me, Jill.
Yeah. So for me, I think continuing education is one of those things where, particularly in cybersecurity, the more you learn about cybersecurity, the more you fundamentally understand that you don't know. It's a ever-growing field. It will continue to grow exponentially with each year that passes. 25 years ago when I started in this field, I thought I knew a lot of stuff. 25 years later, I know that I know a lot of stuff, but there is way more stuff that I don't know than what I do know. So continuing education is part of that process of just keep learning things so you can have that better understanding, that better depth and breadth that we all strive for.
I love that. I think that really ties into the second point is, is it really that important? And I think that your comment there about, what you thought you knew 25 years ago versus what you know now versus what you still need to learn is that, yes, that continuing education is powerful and gives us an opportunity to really continue growing and staying current. So let's talk about different ways that you can learn in the continuing education. There's advanced degrees, there's boot camps, there's certification programs, webinars and podcasts, social media. There's just so many different avenues of learning. I'd like to kind of hit on each of those and get your all's thoughts on different programs and ways out there. So let's start with like the advanced degrees.
I'll just jump in here and say that the advanced degrees are great. They tend to take a longer period of time. Where I was really focused as the head of cybersecurity for the state of Arizona, I cared more about certifications. So if you can find a good cybersecurity boot camp, and there are good boot camps out there, and I'm not just saying that because we specialize in this, but regardless of who you go with, your return on investment becomes so valuable because you can quickly gain the skills needed to get that certification and jump right back in to the workforce, or take a big pay raise, or take on an additional job, or become more versatile. My colleagues and panelists did a great job describing this. I loved Ken's metaphor with the lock and the keys, because believe me, the bad guys are changing the locks on us. And no pun intended when it comes to ransomware, but we need to continue to get, adding keys to, our keychain here. And I think Ken kind of hit the nail on the head. I'll just say the advanced degrees are phenomenal. We recruited people with advanced degrees, but I really think that for a lot of people on the line, your return on investment with gaining the skills necessary quicker does not mean that you're sacrificing any credibility whatsoever. With all the vacancies that are out there on all of our cyber teams nationwide, we need a workforce right now. So I honestly think the faster you can gain those skills and get certified, you're going to start to see the benefits and the true impacts, not only in your salary, but I think you're going to see it in your long-term career stability and your just overall value and happiness.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Tim just said. I will say, just on advanced degrees or just any college degree, if it's in your budget, then there's nothing wrong with that. If you get an employer to pay for that, I think they're great. They do have value as you get further in your career, I think. When you're just starting out, they may not be relevant. I see a lot of people getting a master's in cybersecurity thinking that's going to be the key to getting their very first job, and that's just not reality usually. To Tim's point, certifications can break down that barrier a bit and help you get in a lot faster. I think degrees pay off a little more later in your career as you want to move into management, more leadership levels. As you wanted to, if you want to do like professorship at any university, you have to have usually at least a master's degree. So I think there is value there to college degrees. But if you're somebody on this call just kind of starting out, then I wouldn't go into debt. And I think, to Tim's point also, and he was kind of alluding to this, college programs, and I'll just be the one that says it so that I get all the hate mail. College programs are typically, most of them are behind the curve because it takes so long to build curriculum, to get it approved, et cetera. So usually the technology is a little dated that they may be using. Not always the case. There's a lot of great programs out there, but sometimes the technology might be dated. The concepts might be dated. The best practices might have shifted a little bit. So just keep that in mind if you are planning on college, that you probably want to supplement with courses or podcasts or something else to stay up to date on sort of the latest way of things are being done, the latest threats, just so you become a more well-rounded cybersecurity professional.
Perfect. Josh?
So Ken did steal a little bit of my thunder. I was going to talk on, the curve for degrees. Degrees overall have value. They tell me a lot about you in things that are not a technical aspect. They tell me that you have some project management capabilities, that you're able to do a long-term, series of projects, that you're able to work in teams and overcome obstacles. Things that are not necessarily tied directly to your major, but things that as a hiring manager, I really care about. To Ken's point, for a bachelor's degree, typically it's 120 credits. Of that, 36 or so will be in your major, spread out over 4 years. So you're talking, something that you learned your freshman year that was already, 3-4 years out of date, is going to be severely out of date by the time you actually graduate. So it's really about building that really good core base understanding of, the fundamentals of what IT and cybersecurity are, and all those kind of corollary bits and pieces that you're going to have to really understand when you work in a team. Nobody in cybersecurity works alone, at least on the defensive side. You're going to be working in a team. You're going to have to interact with other teams that are doing other bits and pieces of the bigger cybersecurity posture puzzle. And having that kind of advanced degree background, whether it's a bachelor's or a master's, helps give you that higher level perspective that you might not get from certifications. Certifications are absolutely kind of your best bang for the buck getting into the field, but your advanced degrees are going to give you kind of that well-rounding that you might not get from a pure technical standpoint.
Perfect. And I think, going into that and moving into like boot camps, I noticed as I was doing, some searching around, that a lot of universities are starting to have boot camp programs as well. I think that they're starting to recognize the need for getting the technology and the information out in a shorter period of time as well. So let's move to those boot camps and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just say the university partnerships are key because it gives us within the industry, and when I say us, I don't just mean like as a business, I mean cybersecurity in the totality of the circumstances, good guys versus bad guys worldwide. And in order for us to meet this demand and train people in the workforce, I mean, the United States alone has an estimated 750,000 job vacancies just in cyber. And those are the jobs we just know about. So the universities have gotten smart, and they've said, in order for us to really, hit that demand, we need these faster boot camps. But they don't want to reinvent the wheel when, companies have already invented it, within a curriculum. So that's why companies like us at ThriveDX, we partner with universities around the country to offer our curriculum. And that way it's a win-win for everybody involved. They get more students into their programs. They do it in a really effective manner. And then we get, all the added credibility of partnering with the university and more outreach, because that does help. But then at the end of the day, we all win because we end up with more, as I would call them, cyber warriors out there. Instead of it taking somebody 4 years to get through a degree, you could do it in 10 months or less. And that's where, as a former cybersecurity leader, I smile quite literally, because it was hard to hire people, and we need more trained individuals to partner. So that partnership between higher education, universities, and colleges and the boot camps is really kind of a natural kind of match made in heaven.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'll just add in there, some people viewing this, whether it's a recording or live now, might be thinking, well, I can't, pretty much what I could learn in a boot camp, I can just go out and get, free videos and courses and whatever, and kind of do it the low cost route. I think the advantage of like a boot camp program is the structure, just like a university degree, getting that structure, saying, okay, here's the fundamentals you need to learn. The next, few weeks, these are going to build up on that, so by the time you're coming out of just about all of these boot camp programs, you just get that kind of really solid baseline of skills and knowledge that you need to be successful. To the slide here specifically, most of these are geared towards the defensive side. Most of them are going to be for cybersecurity or SOC analyst and cybersecurity engineer. That's the vast majority of boot camps I've seen out there. The reason for that is because there's more jobs available in that arena than there is, I know hacking might be the sexiest thing on earth, at least on Try Hack Me, but reality is it's not that sexy as a pen tester, and there's just not a ton of jobs in that arena. So boot camps are good in that regard because they're structured, they're focused on what do you need to do to be able to actually go do the job. And I think that's a critical component. And ThriveDX, and there's a lot of others out there, these programs are recognized by industry, by companies. They say, oh, you went here. That carries a lot more weight than 500 people apply for a job that have Security Plus. I don't know who's really got the skills, but someone coming out of a boot camp, as long as it's vetted and kind of known in the industry, I know, okay, well, they might not be the rock star coming out of that program, but I know based on the program they're in, it gives them X, Y, and Z skills. I know I can take that because maybe I've hired other people from that program in the past. So it just kind of versus you like learning for free, and by no means am I saying you got to do a boot camp or anything to get a job, but it gives you that structure. And I think that is beneficial. And I think to the university aspect specifically, a lot of schools, to Tim's point, have recognized that we kind of have an antiquated process of curriculum because we have all these, levels we have to go through to get something approved. But if we can bring in someone else that has a program that stays more current, it's a win-win for everybody, right? It's a win for their program. It's a win for us as a university because we get better job placements, and it's a win for our students, both from a skill set aspect as well as them actually being able to get the job when they go out there and start applying.
So I'll take a slightly different tack than Ken, just because I have a different perspective on it, where I don't think boot camps are best used to learn new material. From my perspective, boot camps are best at helping you hone the skills that you've built and identify the gaps where you might have based off of where you've learned your stuff. So you might go out and do all those, free options. You're watching, Professor Messer videos, or you're watching, the various YouTube materials that are out there. But a boot camp, to Ken's point, lets you get very, very granular in a very iterative process that allows you to kind of really say, do I understand this the way I should? Or is there another area I need to go back and focus on? And I think that's kind of a better mentality to look at it rather than I'm going to go to this boot camp, spend 5 days, be fed by a fire hose, take the exam on, the end of day 5, and now I'm security plus. How much of that do you really retain? If you're doing that as your training methodology, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. But if you're using it as a tool to hone the skills that you've already built, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, Josh, and I think you just nailed a perfect point that I hadn't thought of. There's a lot of boot camps out there. A lot of them are cert focused, where to Josh, Josh's comment there, 1 week, let's just cram everything in your head and you're just going to pass the cert. That's a lot different than, say, like a 6-month boot camp where you're kind of going through more of a, let's build your IT foundational skills, operating systems, networking, et cetera. Now let's layer on security on top of that, and let's start building, SIM solution tools, et cetera. The skill set there, there's a lot different. So when you look at a boot camp, and I think you've got a little here on the slide, Jill. When you look at a boot camp program, you have to really, really dig into like, okay, well, what's my ultimate goal with this? Is it to go from like nursing to getting a cybersecurity job without taking that, job in IT? Okay, well, if that's the case, a 1-week boot camp isn't going to do it. A 2-week boot camp isn't going to do it. You might be getting there with a 3 to 6 month boot camp or longer, because they're building those foundational skills so you can actually come in day one on the job and do something besides break everything. So when you're looking at these programs, whether it's college, whether it's a certification study program or a more traditional boot camp that's several months long, you really have to start with like, what do I want to do? What's my ultimate goal? And that allows you to focus and figure out what is the best program for you. Because we can sit up here all day and we can talk about different programs, Thrive DX, Flatiron School. There's other ones out there. But at the end of the day, they might not be the right fit for you. So you as an individual need to really take a step back and say, what's my ultimate goal? And then work backwards from that of figuring out what's the best route for me to get there.
Perfect. And I think you kind of started touching on this, but when you're trying to assess, okay, I want a boot camp, I want to switch into this industry, or I want to grow my skills. What types of things do they need to be looking for when they're searching for, an accredited boot camp? And, how do we know if we're choosing a really good program where we're going to get the skills that we need to transition into the industry or to grow our skill set?
I think you've got to do your due diligence, just like everything you do. And a lot of it is on the bullet points here about, kind of the best practices on that second bullet. But great points from the other panelists. And yeah, it's interesting because I actually just found out yesterday that our main boot camp is now over 400 hours of work. So I was actually really impressed at sort of the length of time that the work you're going to need to put in. But, it is really, to Miguel's question here in the chat, the alternative for individuals whose circumstances may not be conducive to pursuing traditional university education. That's a huge part of this, because there's a lot of people that they can't go during traditional hours. You want that virtual learning environment. You need the flexibility to have kind of the non-traditional hours in a virtual learning environment. So that's really kind of one of the biggest added bonuses. And then the reskilling and upskilling, I think really gets to Josh's point, like where you've got a good skill, but you need to fine tune it. Or, here's a quick example. I just got, an alert from this meeting that you've got an AI assistant helping us, with note taking. And there's a perfect area. You talk about reskilling, upskilling, staying on top of it. Within the cybersecurity field, we're going to need to train people on AI, the good uses, the bad uses, the caution, how we use it right, how we protect ourselves. And that's going to need to happen really fast, because people were always talking about AI like, oh my gosh, AI is going to be able to do this and it's going to be able to do that. Well, guess what? It was like overnight. It is here. It can do this. It can do that. And we've really got to educate ourselves as an industry to protect ourselves, because there's going to be some good uses and there's going to be some bad uses. And we're really going to have to be careful on this one. But it's a good example of the continuing education needed for all of us.
I agree. And I think I'll give an analogy here because I think a lot of people, they hear like AI, and it was just like when we came out with SOAR technology years ago, people started thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to be automated. My job's replaced. Oh goodness. Think about it this way. Like lots of you are too young, and I'm too young to remember when this actually happened. But when cars came around way back in the early 20th century, or maybe late 19th century. But anyways, people got around with horses usually, people working on horse buggies or whatever. Now you've got vehicles. You just have to learn a new skill set, but your job's not actually replaced. It's just a new skill set. It's a new way of doing things. AI is just a tool like any tool in the arsenal that we use. It just allows you to do a lot of good things, allows the bad guys to do a lot of bad things. So that, to Tim's point of upskilling there, that's just the way to think of it though. It's never replacing you as long as you keep your skill set up, as long as you keep that continuing education. To Jill's question directly on how do you vet programs, I think Tim summed it up easily, right? Do your due diligence. One of the key aspects I think you need to really dig into though, with any bootcamp program or college or anything that you're doing, what's the actual job placement rate? Because what I see is a lot of places will say, 80% of our graduates got jobs, but in reality, most of those are actually just IT help desk jobs. So you really need to dig into like, are they actually placing people into analyst or engineering jobs or pen tester, or is it more IT focused jobs like help desk, sysadmin or something? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? It's good to get your start. I'm all about starting in IT and then moving to cyber because cyber is really not an entry level job whatsoever. But at the same time, if you're paying 20, whatever they are, 15, 20, 25 grand for a boot camp or 100 grand for a college degree, and you're coming out and making $30,000 at a help desk, I mean, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense financially to do that. So that's where I think you need to do your due diligence and really dig into that component of it would be my recommendation to see like, are they actually placing people into real cybersecurity jobs, or are they more IT help desk, sysadmin, the lower paying jobs? And if you're okay with starting out at lower pay, that's totally fine, but just make sure you're aware of that. Don't get excited about a bunch of reviews online like, hey, help me get a job, because that job could be anything. So I really think you need to dig into that. That's something that I've seen a lot of people make that mistake. Well, now all I can get is a IT help desk job. Well, you didn't do your due diligence, right? Like Tim said, you didn't dig into it more to figure out what the real results of that program are.
And to that point, the good programs, whether they're university or boot camps, will be very transparent with that information. It'll be out there available. They will be absolutely hyping up and giving you the facts and figures where they got that data from. It's not just going to be, yes, we have job placement afterwards. And you'll see that with a lot of the bad schools, of bad boot camps, where they'll promise you things like it's a security plus boot camp. You'll pay $10,000 for us, and we're going to get you security plus, and the average salary for security plus is $80,000 a year. Yes, it is, but that's not really giving you the full picture, because that $80,000 a year is including people like me and Ken, who also have security plus, along with a plethora of other things and 25 years of experience in the field, and progressive job offers that have gone over the course of that time frame. So it's not giving you a true perspective of what your expected salary is leaving that program. They're going to kind of massage the numbers and make it look like you're getting better value than you are. So the folks that are truly transparent with that are the ones that are going to be the good program.
Okay, let's jump into certifications because we've hit on several different types. There's a lot of different certification programs out there. There's a lot of different opportunities, and y'all have hit on several, where you can do like short boot camps to get certifications or whatever. So where is your best bang for your buck in using certifications and choosing where you want to go?
I don't necessarily have to go first on all these, but I think one of the common themes from the three of us is knowing yourself, knowing what you want to do. I think there's a common misconception in cybersecurity of the employees that I'll talk to throughout the years, and they say, oh, I want to go into cybersecurity. And it's like, okay, but what do you want to do? I mean, it's not just like one job. I mean, there's a plethora of jobs out there within cybersecurity. And then you need to do some research. You need to figure out your personality. Like, where are you going to be happiest? And that's going to help you into figuring out, what do I want to get certified in? Who do I need the certificate from? It's kind of like, I'm not sure if it was Josh or Ken said it earlier, but they talked about almost working backwards. They talked about how, like, figure out kind of where you want to be, which job, which certification, and that's going to help you pick sort of what's, best available, best for you, in the right fit, because there are all these options. And I'll give you just one kind of quick example when it comes to the cybersecurity industry. Like, with all the cybersecurity jobs out there, you want to be honest with yourself. Like, where is your best skill set? Where is your personality going to be the best fit? I would not be a good fit in most cybersecurity day jobs. The one job that I would be a great fit would be being a SOC analyst, because my type of personality is, I want to be reviewing data coming in, figuring out what's a false positive, where do my concerns need to be, what's real, what's not a concern right now. I find that my type of personality, that's what I need. I need that kind of like quick work. I'm not going to sit down and configure a firewall or, code something for days. It's just not my type of personality. So when people think about going through and going into this career, going through these certification programs, do that really honest self-assessment. For all of us, one of the best things we can do, be aware of our strengths and weaknesses. And a lot about what we're talking on the call today is, how do we raise the bar of our weaknesses? How do we continue education forward, which is important. But again, by working backwards, that's going to help kind of answer this question for each person on a very personal basis.
Yeah, to Tim's point, absolutely. Definitely take that, what do I want to do? And then go look at the job requirements that are put out there for job descriptions for that job. What are people asking for? How are you going to best align yourself to what they're offering or what they're asking for? Maybe it might not be a certification by name in that job description, but look at the objectives from the job description compared to the objectives on the certification. And when you see those alignments, that helps you kind of plot where you want to go. There are some that are super easy to understand. If you want to work, DoD, they have the 8570, 8140 cert matrix that says, for this kind of job, you need these certifications. Very, very black and white. This is how you're going to do this. For me, I think, most people who are going to work in cybersecurity, whether you get the GSEC or CompTIA Security Plus or SSCP from ISC Squared, any of those basic, security focused certifications are going to do you well and, pay dividends down the road as just kind of a good starting point. And that might even give you the, inkling of which direction you want to go, because cybersecurity is so huge. You can have, blue team, folks that are doing SOC analysts. You can have GRC folks that are doing a lot of the, compliance and controls. You can have folks that are doing, build and run, maintain of the tool sets. There's just so many different fields within that greater cybersecurity kind of bailiwick.
Yeah, and I'm just going to echo what Tim and Josh said. You've really got to do that self-assessment. And one of the easiest ways to do that, if you're sitting there right now, like, I have no idea what I want to do. I haven't assessed what I want to do. I don't know what I like. Easiest way is go on a place like Udemy, or just go watch like Professor Messer videos for free. Get a free or low cost course in a couple of different certs areas. So maybe a pen testing related cert. Find a free course or a low cost course. Try that out a little bit. Try Hack Me for that stuff. Maybe take a course on GRC, see what it's all about. Jerry Osier, who has a Simply Cyber YouTube channel, he has I think he's still got a free option for his GRC masterclass. You can check out GRC, you could see some real examples and see maybe that's something you want to do. There's free stuff on auditing. There's free stuff on SOC analyst, cybersecurity analyst, security engineering. I mean, it's really just a matter of exposing yourself at first. If you don't know what you want to do, expose yourself to a lot of different things, play around a little bit, and then get focused. Because it's very easy to, there's 1,000 different certs, there's tens of thousands of places to train. It can, if you go on social media, this person's, Josh is learning this, Ken's learning that, Tim's learning that, Jill's learning this. You start going in a million directions, focus on one. But the way to get there first, if you have no clue, is just expose yourself a little bit to some free videos or low-cost courses, and then say, okay, well, I kind of like GRC. and then focus on GRC. Pick that for the next 6 months, focus on all that and get your first job. I'll just add a tip here for like resumes. If you don't have budget for certifications, because I mean, I used to be broke back in the day. If you don't have that kind of budget, then an easy way to get around the ATS filters is just put studying for whatever cert, right? So CompTIA Security Plus, buy a book, buy a course. Now on your resume, you can put studying for Security Plus. So when it does a keyword search, your resume is in one of the ones that it picks because you got that in your resume. So just a quick tip, you don't have to go spend thousands of dollars on certifications if you don't have the money. You definitely should never go in debt for a certification, in my opinion, but you can always just list studying for. And then when I get you in for the job interview, I'm going to ask you, oh, you're studying for Security Plus. When do you plan to take it? Well, I don't know. I'm still studying. Okay. Well, what domain are you on right now? And you'll be able to tell me that. Don't lie in your resume, by the way, but just say it like that because you are studying for it. It's just you haven't picked a date yet that you're going to actually take it because you can't afford it, which is totally fine. I mean, many of us have grown up poor. We understand that stuff, but you sometimes you have to play the game and get past those filters, and that's a quick way to do that.
To one of Ken's points about low cost certifications, beta exams are absolutely phenomenal. Serendipitously today, CompTIA dropped the results of their CYSA plus beta exam. So a bunch of folks took it at the end of last year, and then those results came out, and they were able to take CYSA plus for $50. Full exam, get the full credit, everything that you would for a real exam that you're typically paying about $400 for. The catch is that you have to wait, 3, 4, 6 months to get the results. And there aren't any real study materials for it because it's beta. They'll give you the objectives and you can go forth and study on your own, pull together what you think might be on the exam. But, my LinkedIn feed today, hundreds and hundreds of people all posting that they passed the beta. And they were able to get a worthwhile credential that meets those 8570, 8140 credential things. Folks like me that are a hiring manager in a SOC, I look for CYSA as one of those certifications that might be a deciding factor on, who I interview. And they're able to do that for $50 because they took the beta, which is absolutely huge.
Excellent. And we had a couple of questions around it. I think we touched on it a little bit about the advantages of the free cyber programs, but what are y'all thoughts about like the new Google just launched a program for cybersecurity and stuff? How do you think these programs will support people in equipping them with job ready skills?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick on that. So I think that it's a great thing when the training's offered for free or democratized, if we want to use a fancy word. I think the biggest thing there is being able to convey what you're learning in your resume, on social media as part of your personal branding, and then being able to actually do it. So don't just watch like a Google video on how to do something or do like one lab. Show me how that lab relates to the real world. So it doesn't matter whether you're going through paid or free training. That doesn't matter to me as a hiring manager. But can you like take that lab you did? Let's just say you're doing forensics and you found an artifact of a breach or something on a host system. Explain that to me. Tell me like how that applies to a healthcare organization or something. Like show me that. If you could show me that on your resume or on like LinkedIn, for example, you're going to catch my eye. And even if I'm not hiring, Josh might be hiring or Tim might be hiring. And because you're showing me that you know what you're talking about, you can really make that, you can connect the dots, essentially connect what you're learning to the real world. Then I'm more likely to put my brand on you and say, hey, Josh, this woman over here is phenomenal. She's been learning a lot of stuff. I know you guys mentioned you have an entry-level role. You mind if I connect you to? All of a sudden, you've got at least an interview usually, maybe the job offer. Because like 95% of jobs in cyber are hidden. You'll never know about them. They're not in a job posting. It's because of people before you already have those relationships established. And when they see that you're doing those things and that you actually understand and can do things, that's when those doors, as I gave the analogy earlier of the door locks and the keys, that's when all those doors start to really open up for you in your career. So that's my opinion on whether it's Google or any of these free trainings. I think it's great because for poor kids like myself, it removes all those barriers of economics. But at the same time, you can learn a million things, but if you don't convey that properly, nobody knows. Like you could be the smartest person in the room right now, None of us know that because you're not on social media posting about it. You're not showing us that you can actually do the job.
I think that's well said. I think about my national security background, and I think to myself, we would try really hard to do these great things in intelligence, but at the end of the day, open source intelligence was sometimes the most valuable type of intelligence. You didn't need to go out and do anything super fancy. What you needed was right there in front of you. You just had to take the proactive step to go and utilize it. I think I would use that kind of comparison, regardless of whether you're doing a college degree, a master's degree, a boot camp, anything else. No matter what you pick, you should also be utilizing free resources because it gives you more of a diversity of who your teachers are, where you're getting the information, more practice, all those types of things. Look, you could be an athlete and you could hire a former professional athlete to train you and pay them a bunch of money. That does not mean when you go home at the end of the day, you said, oh, well, I just had this professional athlete, training me all day. That's all I need to do. I don't need to go home and throw the ball off the back wall and get more reps in. I don't need to go for a run on my own. You absolutely do. And utilizing free resources, no matter what career you're in, that's really valuable. So utilize all those. It's also going to help you get through your programs faster with more efficiency. You're going to retain the information more, and you're going to have a better chance of success of actually passing your certifications because you basically took all the options available to you. So yeah, take advantage of them. But it is, to kind of echo some of the comments of the other co-panelists, being able to show on paper, be able to articulate what you've learned is still very important.
Perfect. And I guess, kind of going into taking advantage of all the different resources out there, what do y'all think about webinars and podcasts and where are great places to go? Like I've stuck a couple of links in here where people can go that list out some favorited podcasts and stuff like that to check out. But what are y'all's thoughts on, people to follow and podcasts that you listen to regularly that have great information?
Yeah, I'll just dive in real quick. I think going back to what we've kind of conveyed throughout this session, you got to focus on what you want to do first, because there's a ton of podcasts, there's a ton of webinars out there. So really focus on what are you trying to learn? Cybersecurity analyst, SOC analyst, GRC. Like what do you want to be known for? What do you want to specialize in? I think that's a starting point. Just in general, I'll give my couple, like the Cyber Wire is good for hearing about some of the recent cyber incidents. You can follow like Simply Cyber YouTube channel. Jerry Osher does a number of things around like a weekly kind of summary on or recap on cyber news. Hacker Valley Studio has a number of podcasts under their umbrella that they use. So, I mean, there's just a ton of them out there. I would just say my suggestion is really just focus on what you want to do. And then a simple Google search will really yield exactly what, what's out there available for you in that particular niche that you want to specialize in.
Yeah, I'll jump in and go. There are a lot of really great podcast webinars out there. One of my favorites is InfoSec Live. If you look him up on YouTube, a good friend of mine runs that, and he has folks come in from all different aspects. It's never kind of the same thing over and over again. But beyond that, vendors put on a lot of really great podcasts. Some of them are very product specific. Other ones are very agnostic to the product. They just have folks that are experts, that are thought leaders in that kind of area, that will come in and talk about things. Typically they're free. You might even get limited access to their product if you attend their webinar, and that gives you kind of that introduction to those tool sets that you're going to be using. As someone who's run a SOC, I really don't care what SIM whether it's Splunk, Devo, Elk Stack, Sumo Logic. I just care that you know that a SIM and you know how they work, because I can teach you the specific of whatever I'm using. But you coming in with the basic understanding of how those things work from another tool is priceless. So getting into those vendor specific things can be huge exponential return on investments of your time.
And I'll only add, as my piece of advice is, diversify yourself in what you're listening to, because that's how you weed out all the information to make a good use. of your time. For example, listening to military leaders talk about cybersecurity is something I'm passionate about. And I think it helps broaden my horizons because it's not, I didn't come from a military background. I did come from a national security background. I worked at CIA for 10 years, but DoD has a totally different way of doing things. So to diversify myself, I tend to listen to others from a different, point of view than listening to all my former bosses talk on a podcast. So I think just probably the best advice is really pick a good range of the material and the guests of the podcast, and that's probably going to be your best use of time. Like if you're looking for a career in the government space, but you want to do state and local, well, like there are very specific podcasts that have state and local leaders on it, because I know I've been on, like, for example, Tech Tables multiple times, and Joe gets great local leaders around the country to be on. So to go back to open source intelligence, one of the best things you can do when you're looking for a job and a career, a lot of it's already out there. Your potential future bosses are on podcasts right now. They've already taped them. They've literally already documented what they're looking for, who they're looking for, the fact that they need them now, what industry they're in, what location they're in. You could go listen to some of these podcasts and immediately start hitting people up on LinkedIn, start sending out some resumes. You'd be amazed at how fast you can connect, but you got to be more targeted with, what you're listening to.
Excellent. And I think, that taking that in, what about social media? And I think you kind of touched on that a little bit, Tim, as, checking people out and listening to those podcasts and then go finding them on LinkedIn and figuring out how to connect. There is a lot of value in that. Do you think that social media is valuable through like LinkedIn and stuff like that for continuing your education? Do you think that there's good places to find people to follow and gain information, or are you better sticking with like podcasts and webinars and that type of thing?
You need it all. In order to be successful, you can't just be in one area. I have found within this industry, LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's not a silver bullet, so to speak. Just like we say in cybersecurity, there's not one tool you're going to download and you're going to say, oh my God, it solved everything I needed to solve. If you spend all of your time, networking on LinkedIn, no, it's not going to solve all the connections you need. There's also really, in my opinion, there's no substitute for face-to-face. If you're a new career seeker out there, you're going to want to not only listen to your podcast, like we talked about, social media, LinkedIn, things like that. You're going to want to find events that are in your own backyard, in your own community, and show up in person. This does not mean you've got to pay thousands of dollars to go to RSA in Black Hat. It just means go ahead and follow a certain hashtag, for example. Figure out there's a lot of free events that are open to the public within our industry. And even the ones that aren't free, for example, many of us just got back from RSA in San Francisco, the largest cybersecurity conference. And it's amazing because you can get all the benefits of being there and networking and knowing who to go see by simply, buying an expo pass. So you don't need, if you want to go out and you want to network, you don't need to necessarily go spend $2,000. And sorry that I'm saying RSA. Look, the panels are great value. I'm not taking away from it. I'm just being really candid with the individuals, because a common theme here is I know for a fact many of the people listening are not going to have the money. They're not going to have an employer be able to pay for them to go to those large conferences. But you could spend $50 and you could get an expo pass, and you'd be amazed what you're going to learn in person from going to those events, meeting people in person, seeing some demos in person. There's great value to go to those, especially when you're trying to figure out, what do I want to do? What area of cybersecurity do I want to focus on? What companies are out there? Get yourself an expo pass, go and spend the full days there and walk around, get your free demos, meet as many people as you can, connect as many business cards as you can. Because guess what? Now you're back on social media, but you can say in a LinkedIn message, hey, it was nice meeting you. We talked about the fact that I'm going to school to study this. would you mind giving me some advice? Or is there anybody in your organization I can submit an application for? So, all that's great on social media, but the in-person is really where you're going to connect the dots.
Yeah, absolutely agree with all of that. And there are lots of really great small conferences that are very regional. Coming back from RSA, there was B-Sides New Orleans was the week afterwards. Actually, next weekend in New Orleans, they have NOLACon, which is a big cybersecurity conference that is very regional. Same week in Austin, CIS is having a conference in Austin that they're giving out free passes with the right, if you have people who can give you the promo codes. A lot of times vendors will give you expo passes so you can go see their vendor product at all these various conferences. And how do you find out about the conferences? You're on social media. You're following the right people on Twitter. You're following folks on Mastodon, on LinkedIn. Folks are sharing that information all the time. 75% of all jobs are never advertised. And that's across the board. I think in cybersecurity, it's a little bit more than that. But you get those jobs because you know somebody. I've had jobs where I knew I was going to have to hire somebody, but that job never went public because we already knew we had 3 people that we were going to reach out to interview for that job directly. I didn't have to advertise it. I had folks that were based off of networking that I know these people. Reputation matters. Ken pointed out, if he comes to me and says, I have this person who's good, I trust Ken and Ken's reputation. He's putting his name and that brand on that person. So they get a higher level of confidence coming in before they even get to the interview because Ken has vouched for them. I would say the same thing. Like if I recommended somebody to Tim, he's probably going to take that person a little more seriously than just the random person who's out there spraying and praying resumes. Getting that kind of background and that connection to real people and showing us that you know what you're doing, that you actually are this professional and you're engaging in content. You're not just following people, but you're actually engaging, you're having conversation. That truly matters.
Yeah, only thing I'm going to add to just phenomenal points by Tim and Josh is for conferences, if you don't have the money, you can always volunteer, especially for the smaller local ones. You can just reach out and say, hey, I'd love to volunteer. It's my first conference ever, but I don't have the money for a pass. 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you a pass. And because you tell them you don't have any money, they're probably going to give you the best pass that they have that they can give you. So you can network and they'll take you, especially if you volunteer at local ones, they'll take you under their wing a little bit, introduce you to people. Especially if you know what you want, you'd say, hey, I want to be a pen tester. They're going to find the pen testers that are going there and say, hey, meet, Sally over here. She's a pen tester at some, major company. And then to Tim's point and also Josh's point, the in-person, right? Now you're meeting these people that really on social media, they're never going to respond to you. Most of them don't. But because you met them in person, all of a sudden you're different. You're not the thousands of people begging them every day, please give me a job. You're Sally or you're Tim or you're Josh or, Lisa or whoever. Now you're a human to them and you're somebody that they naturally want to help. It's just a law of reciprocity, right? You've given to them some capacity by meeting them and being nice. And at the same time, they want to turn around and help you in your career.
Perfect. And the remainder slides that we have, I'm getting ready to drop a link into the chat here so that everybody has access to this deck. So Tim, Josh, and Ken have each been amazing and provided additional information for additional resources and stuff. And so I want y'all to have access to that. So I'm going to drop it here into the chat. But I want to stop sharing and give y'all a few minutes to ask questions yourself. So please come off mute and ask your questions.
Don't be shy.
I was about to say the same thing. I've seen some really good questions in the chat, so please.
So I'll break the ice.
Quick question.
Or go ahead. Go with the question.
Oh, sorry. Just when we get done with a boot camp, is there any like good entry level certificate or certification that might be good? Because like you're saying, since going to a boot camp now, I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I'm still, getting my feet wet.
Yeah, I would say most boot camps out there that I'm aware of, you're probably mostly prepared for the CompTIA Security Plus if you're looking for a certification. Some of the bootcamp curriculum will be relevant to other certs, but that's probably the one you're most aligned with for the vast majority of the programs out there.
Yeah, and find boot camps. I think Josh said this earlier. Find boot camps that are credible and transparent up front, like the way we'll partner with a university and we will show you who our hiring partners are. And think one step ahead. We talked a lot about thinking backwards. So think about, like, if there's a specific industry or a specific employer you want, you can target that. And then through your boot camp, regardless of who you go through, you can literally, like, you should be working with the counselors, advisors, instructors during your boot camp to say, hey, when I'm done and I pass this certification, could you please help me with X, Y, and Z companies? That's where I really want to work. Because you'd be amazed how many times you can achieve something if you ask for it. But so many people sit back and they think that the employers are just going to come to you and find you. And it's not really the case. Even in an in-demand industry like this, you got to take that initiative. Do not be afraid to ask, especially when you just, went through a boot camp. Don't be afraid to ask that boot camp for help with, their hiring providers, partners.
And beyond that, everyone's heard 6 degrees of separation. I think in cybersecurity, it's like 2 or 3 degrees of separation. Everybody knows everybody else, or if you don't know them, you know somebody who knows who that person is. And even the people that you are going through boot camps with might know somebody. So absolutely reach out to your folks, your people that you are in class with, your instructors. Say, I'm interested in this company. Do you know anybody there? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. If they don't, they might know somebody who's there that might be willing to make that introduction. That's where it comes back to that networking piece of put yourself out there. Be the person that is willing to ask a question. Because if you're the person that's willing to ask the question, that also means that you're the person that's willing to ask the question when work needs to get done, and you're going to get the work done, which is what we really care about.
Yeah, really funny, quick story. I was in Las Vegas at a cybersecurity event and I was talking about Thrive DX. And this guy said back to me, you don't have to sell me on Thrive DX. I'm one of your instructors. And I thought, we have 1,000, instructors, or so across the country. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay. But the point is that our instructors, just like any boot camp you would go with, I don't mean that we're the only ones with it out there, your instructors do have a lot of connections. They are the ones rubbing shoulders with people that are already at the events. Do not be afraid to ask them for assistance. Just kind of, a real world story to tell you that I just had in person to go along with Josh's great point.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Tim, Kim, Josh, so much for your time today. It has been amazing listening to y'all talk about this topic and sharing just your thoughts and your experience in this. We appreciate you so much. Thank you to each of you who joined us today. We appreciate y'all coming and participating. And we should have this posted on our website and our YouTube page before the end of the week for that replay to be made available. So thank you so much for your time today, and we appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you guys, ladies.